Some DC characters were not just forgotten. They were built with huge origins, powerful legacies, and stories that made them look like future icons, only for DC to push them aside, erase their place in history, replace them, or turn them into casualties. Some of them even saved reality before being left behind. If you're into comics and nerd content like this, hit like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Aztek was built like a hero who should have mattered for years. Uno was trained from childhood by the Q Society to become the champion of Quetzalcoatl, then sent to Vanity City wearing armor powered by strange four-dimensional energy. He could fly, turn invisible, fire plasma blasts, shift his density, and feed information straight into his mind. On paper, DC had a mythic powerhouse with Justice League potential. But that promise vanished almost as fast as it arrived. His own series lasted only 10 issues before he was folded into JLA, where joining the League made him look ready for a much bigger future. Instead, his story ended in the World War III storyline, when he sacrificed himself against Mageddon, the threat tied to Tezcatlipoca. After that, the original Aztek felt less like a rising star and more like a hero DC threw away. Triumph was not just another forgotten Justice League member. He was written as a man history itself threw away. William McIntyre was retconned into the team's earliest days as a founding hero who vanished during their first mission. A time rift erased him from existence, so the world moved on, the League became legendary, and nobody remembered that he had ever stood beside Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. When he finally came back, that stolen place in history poisoned everything around him. Triumph had control over the electromagnetic spectrum, letting him create force fields, fire energy, read signals, and even threaten Superman by cutting off solar access. But instead of becoming the Justice League icon he believed he should be, he grew bitter, unstable, and was later killed when Prometheus destroyed the JLA Watchtower. Fate was DC's most aggressive attempt to drag Dr. Fate into the 90s, and almost everything about him rejected tradition. Jared Stevens was not a noble sorcerer or a chosen student of Nabu, but a black market artifact hunter who found the ruined symbols of Dr. Fate after 0 hour. Instead of wearing the helmet and cape, he melted the legacy into weapons, turning the helmet into a blade and the cloak into wraps. That idea could have made him a dangerous street-level contrast to the classic Dr. Fate mythos, especially for a darker era of comics. He had his own Fate series and then the Book of Fate, but the experiment never became permanent. When JSA relaunched, DC moved back toward tradition. Jared was killed by Mordru in JSA #1, making him feel like a rough draft the company quietly erased once nostalgia came calling. Linda Danvers became Supergirl at a time when DC was still trying to live without Kara Zor-El in its main continuity. Her story began when Matrix merged with Linda to save her life, creating a version of Supergirl built around guilt, redemption, faith, and identity. Under Peter David, she was not just Superman's cousin with a different name, but a flawed young woman trying to become worthy of the symbols she carried. That made her one of the strangest and most personal takes on Supergirl, especially when the book pushed her toward the Earthborn Angel idea. But once DC brought Kara Zor-El back into the center of the mythology, Linda's place became harder to protect. After years of development, trauma, and sacrifice, she quietly stepped away, leaving behind a version of Supergirl that DC built with care, then mostly abandoned. Pantha had the kind of sharp visual hook DC could have turned into a lasting Titan story. Rosabelle Mendez, also known as X-24, was tied to the Wildebeest Society and carried the tragedy of someone transformed into a weapon before she ever chose to be a hero. With claws, enhanced strength, agility, and a wild temper, she brought a rougher edge to the Teen Titans that felt very different from the team's usual legacy heroes. The sad part is that Pantha's mystery was more interesting than the ending DC gave her. Her lost identity, her connection to baby Wildebeest, and her place among the Titans all had room to grow. Instead, Infinite Crisis turned her into one of Superboy Prime's most brutal victims. For years, she was remembered less as a character with potential and more as proof of how disposable some Titans became during big events. Damage should have been one of DC's most important legacy heroes after Zero Hour. Grant Emerson was the son of Al Pratt, the original Atom, which connected him directly to the golden age of the DC universe. But his powers were not small at all. He could build explosive energy inside his body and release it with terrifying force, making him less like a traditional sidekick and more like a walking disaster waiting to happen. His biggest moment was enormous, because Damage helped reignite the Big Bang and restore the universe during Zero Hour. That kind of role should have made him unforgettable, but DC never treated him like a pillar of the next generation. He drifted through teams, trauma, and redesigns before Blackest Night killed him in a shocking way. Grant saved reality once, yet still felt like a hero DC never knew how to use. Manitou Raven arrived with the kind of mythology DC rarely gives to a new Justice League member. He was an ancient shaman from the League of Ancients, first introduced during the Obsidian Age, when the Justice League was pulled into a story tied to Atlantis, magic, and old betrayals. With spells, artifacts, spiritual power, and a colder worldview, he felt like a dangerous replacement for the team's usual mystical allies. What made him stand out was not just his magic, but the feeling that he came from a different age of heroism. Manitou Raven later joined the Justice League Elite, which could have made him DC's darker answer to Dr. Fate or Zatanna. Instead, his time ended quickly when he sacrificed himself in Justice League Elite. After that, his legacy passed to Manitou Dawn, while Raven became another strong idea DC barely explored. Anima had the kind of supernatural hook that could have made her one of DC's strangest young heroes. Courtney Mason gained her powers during Bloodlines, when alien parasites awakened the metagene in ordinary people, but instead of a simple energy blast, Courtney became linked to the Animus, a terrifying inner force that could drain life energy and turn her pain into something monstrous and deeply personal. That concept gave DC a teenage runaway with horror, rage, and superhero tragedy all in one place. She even moved through the orbit of the Titans and the Blood Pack, which should have kept her connected to bigger stories. But like many New Bloods, Anima faded after her push was over. Years later, Prometheus killed her in Faces of Evil. Prometheus, making her feel like another 90s experiment DC never truly finished. Gunfire sounds ridiculous at first, but that is exactly why he could have become memorable. Andrew Van Horn was introduced through Bloodlines after an alien parasite attack unlocked his metahuman ability. His power let him agitate the atoms in almost any object he touched, turning everyday things into weapons that fired energy. In the right hands, that could have been creative, strange, flashy, and dangerous. DC even gave him his own series, presenting Andrew as a reluctant hero pulled into a world of violence and corporate legacy. But the character never escaped the shadow of Bloodlines, a crossover remembered more for strange new heroes than lasting stars. Over time, Gunfire became less a serious new lead and more a punchline for abandoned 90s ideas, even though his power had real visual potential on page. Sodom Yat was introduced like a Green Lantern, who should have changed the entire core. He was a Daxamite, meaning he had powers similar to a Kryptonian under a yellow sun, but with a weakness to lead instead of kryptonite. Then DC gave him a Green Lantern ring and made him the host of Ion, turning him into a living mix of Superman-level strength, willpower, and cosmic prophecy almost overnight in battle. His biggest stories made that promise feel real. Sodom fought Superboy Prime, helped stop Ranks from destroying Mogo, and later entered Daxam's sun to turn it yellow so his people could fight back. That is the kind of resume that should create a legend. Instead, he kept slipping out of focus while Hal Jordan, Jon Stewart, Guy Gardner, Kyle Rayner, and others stayed at the center of Green Lantern lore for years. In the end, these characters show how many great ideas DC left behind. Some had powerful origins, some carried huge legacies, and some were one good story away from becoming unforgettable. Thanks for watching. Leave a like, comment who deserved better, and subscribe for more comic book history.